Hi. This week I'm calling it Deep, Deep Release. I've been procrastinating all morning in making this share because I thought, how am I going to bring it forth? How can this be brought into words for those who watch this? Some of you are practitioners and some are not. Practitioners may relate in a way in how they work that this makes sense, and some of you may just listen to it and see what you get from it. And I want to say I so appreciate those that come and share sessions that brings forth this information to even be shared with all. So great appreciation for that. So deep, deep release. And it was actually, it went to areas that on a logic level we don't go to. Our logic really uses a very small window that very often relates to what happened in this lifetime, what's going on in more that which even in this lifetime can feel forgotten and whatnot. But this time it went to areas and levels that were so deep, and yet the repercussions in this lifetime in the physical body shows up, or very much in how we see the future. So to give you a representation of this, it's very much this point of presence and that spiral that goes in both directions. And in this moment, the further back we go, the further it prints out here. There's a past projects into the future, and the future is anticipated in relationship to what the past may have presented or what we have experienced, which at the end of the day has very little to do with this spot right here. And the more neutral we can be, the more we are able to actually see more clearly that which the heart can see. And how do we stay on that page when the heart can see, despite what shows up? And or how calm can we stay despite what shows up? And then that again can be very tricky, which actually showed up in the sessions this week. So when we are in this spot here, it's equivalent to Plato's cave. Plato's cave, those that were lying down watching all the figures and all the gossip of what that might mean, what this may mean in terms of the reflections from the fire that was outside the cave and people walking outside the cave and the reflections inside the cave. And those that were outside of the cave could not express to those inside the cave what they saw. It's like, come out here, you'll realize they're just reflections of passing by figures. And the more we are outside the cave, and I'd say even further aspects of Plato's cave, is even what showed up this weekend. People are experiencing aspects where they can see the dome of this world, the dome, and how that dome, and seeing the dome, it's equivalent to being in the cave by seeing that dome. But when you can see outside of the dome, you can start to see how you are the creator. And to be able to be in this spot here. So a lot of the deep release came from areas prior to that spot, which then, of course, affects that going forward. And once that was seen, because to be outside of the dome, outside of the cave, we need to be able to swallow that. And to swallow it is to digest it and then utilize it. That's a big step. So what happened with this picture here, or with this diagram, I should say, is that when here and looking ahead, because there is that sense of what we desire to create, what we feel a connection to, what our heart wants to enter into. The experience that showed up was, and this showed up a couple of times, interestingly enough, in this weekend, hence deep release. Because going back to here and seeing all the steps that were made to be here now, and some of those steps, in looking back, it's like when you take on a project, you go, yeah, I'm going to do that. And you enter into it. 10 years later, 5 years later, 2 years later, and all the steps you had to go through to get there, which you did not realize when you said the initial yes. When we look back, we go, hold on, I don't think I want to do that again. Even though you have in that process developed skills and capacities and ways of staying and being that you would not give up for anything, still to move forward and do it all again. So being in this spot, having that as an experience, it did not want to see what it could see, because it had then multiplied these steps up by 10 in terms of what it would take to get to the space that it felt it wanted to move to but did not want to see. And it kind of makes sense, but that is projecting that experience. And because this is a bigger heart, a bigger vision, it feels it has to go through the effort of multiplying that by 10. But because all of that has been done, it is a knowing in self that now I can do that, and to see it and to move forward to it is what the balance came to. But there is a sense of, and this shows up in relationships and being able to stay in joy or whatever it is, it feels too much and therefore unattainable. But it's in relation to past experiences, and having experienced it, you have learnt, you have wisdom. There is something that's happening at the moment that really has come to a completion. And someone who I saw, and And this is someone who I've known for close to 40 years, who's come over time. And I know that in past sessions, long time ago, it really showed up this pendulum swing of lifetimes going from there to there and then there to there back again, and this pendulum swing. And it was very clear that in this time, this experience, it wanted the pendulum to stop it. Because the push and the willingness and the capacity that many others didn't have, and even with that pushing further, this time, and what we saw this weekend, was the contract that was made before entering into this dimension was, I don't want to see it. I want it to stop. Do whatever and put whatever you want to in place so that it does. What a ride. What a ride. And it was very clear that whatever that was, and however that played out here to bring it to this place of center, had been achieved and had been completed. And it being completed, it's like life's your oyster now. The work is completed. You've achieved what you trusted others to put experiences in your place, which we often go, how can they do that? How can they stand in that? Well, those who have those experiences went into that to experience that. So much as we have compassion for what they've taken on, you realize it's an integral part of their journey to be who they are one way or another and to meet what that is. And this being had done that, and it came to a completion. Amazing. This past and future stuff can really be tricky because we can be in that place. And it can just be others speaking or other people bringing things to mind that you then consider, which then goes into mind and the balance is gone. And again, we go into like repeat cycles until we get there. So where things had been corrected and started to show up again, it's about again going to that spot and owning it and seeing it and not letting others tell you other than that. There was someone who came this weekend who you learn so much. I learned so much from people that come, and it showed up in the past, this deep, immense peace and monk guru achievement like energy that lives inside this being. And what showed up this weekend is that the depth of that self had somehow got distorted through a surrogating for, and I'll explain it in a moment. So there's a deep knowing in this being that the peace that's there needs no treatment. The deeper the peace, the no treatment is needed. It was not questioned. It was known so deeply. What showed up, though, that there was a surrogation happening for the grandmother, and the grandmother had an energy of, oh, it's a storm in a teacup, don't worry about it. It'll pass. Well, others around her were worrying. She just saw everything like a storm in a teacup. And his comfort with the grandmother was so deep, he fell into that place of feeling and surrogating for that place that was a preference. But it was still a far removement from the real depth that he has, that his being had an ultimate connection to. And given that that connection was disturbed by the surrogation, it's equivalent to having a breath and a heartbeat. The deeper the breath and the more relaxed, the more that bundle of hiss and that continuation of that heartbeat. But if that is not fully felt, it's like it beats, but it misses that automatic, relaxed, full connection to the heart. And these elements were showing up in his life and in the past, not so long ago, really, to his heart, which made no sense to him given the deeper knowing of no treatment. It's quite extraordinary. And it actually showed up in a severe backache. And as some of you know, sometimes the backache's got nothing to do with the back. It's called cardiac back, where the back actually goes out to protect you from being too strenuous to save the heart. So it was really a matter to the heart of not surrogating for that peace, but going even deeper to an absolute known sense of deep peace, and not feeling that that had to be brought to others, but just to actually be in it yourself. So again, deep release. Another deep release was we could be run by archetypes. And what showed up was a really deep release of the mother archetype. And this being has a very strong, deep mother archetype, to the point where everything was done to facilitate the children, to the point of enabling, which was seen over time. A lot of that had been worked with. But an interesting aspect of the mother archetype showed up. Instead of wanting everything to be okay and to do all you can to make life easier and comfortable for the children, the bit that was missing in the archetype and why it wasn't able to be released, because at some stage the mother needs to let the child go down the steps without holding its hand, or let it run down the hill by itself, and if it falls over and grazes the knee, to actually see how the child has the capacity to deal with that and be okay and continue on in life. But it means letting the hand go. And in letting the hand go, to feel the normality of that part of the mothering. And that was a deep release that had so become part of her spiritual being that to let go of that was vast and deep. What I'll finish this with was someone that came that had such a deep connection to joy. Two beings actually that came that had really deep connections to joy. One who, that deep joy just arrived out of its own being, and it was such a great experience. And it stayed around for quite a long time, enough for it to feel, I want to live in this space, which slowly but surely got nibbled away, and wanting to get that space back, knowing it's a true place and that it exists, wanted to go back to living it. The other had such connection to the joy it knew to be true in an energetic field that it had a strong connection to. But how it was lived was with a holding on to, a tight holding on to that was true, while not necessarily experiencing it in this lifetime, but doing everything for everyone else in the hope that they would connect with that joy, which actually ended up being very miserable. Because how can you make a whole team where you work be in joy, and that continuous process and being tied to does not end well? So the ability to actually feel the release from the holding on to that has been so deep and so knowing, to let it go. And in the process of letting it go, having little sips of joy, seeing a bird fly by, the sun just came out, the clouds that move, the joy of your morning drink or the morning exercise or the morning walk. Keep having sips until eventually it is so light inside that perceived heaviness is not perceived or digested anymore, and that life becomes lighter and lighter and lighter, and it can be achieved in little sips. So these vast, deep issues can be done in little sips going forward. And I think the movement is faster than what you think when that takes place. So the card that came up this week, and there's an essence as well, the card is anticipation. Anticipation creates a feeling of excitement, and that would be at that point. Anticipation creates a feeling of excitement. Hold that feeling of anticipation as you embark on your next course of action. Unusual occurrences may not be anticipated, but don't waste any time worrying either. Let go of expectations. They only take you out of the now moment. When you anticipate, you can enjoy the fun of the whole journey, right here and now. And the Australian bush essence was the alpine mint bush. And the negative conditions were mental and emotional exhaustion that were tied in with this trying to overcome this deep release or this contract which we didn't want to see, or whatever it is. Lack of joy and weight of responsibility of caregivers. Being other-orientated, always caring for that, instead of carrying yourself lightly, which is infectious for others. And the positive outcome is revitalization, joy, and renewal. They give much of themselves both physically and emotionally, often listening to people in pain and need. These caregivers can be in danger of burning out or becoming disillusioned. They can reach a point of tiredness, feeling their life has lost its joy. Alpine mint bush can revitalize and bring about in these people a renewed enthusiasm of joy in their life for what they do. And the deep, deep release this time showed the vastness of where that release needs to be. But the message I would say this week is have sips of joy whenever you can, and before you know it, you will see that which one can be attracted to or feel to or be open to. And the joy, the ultimate joy, that is the real ground from which all things come, which is backed by love, which is not questioned. Much love.